Hi everybody, I'm Dan Langley and this is the Manufacturing IT Podcast. In each episode, I speak to key stakeholders, industry titans, and the legends that are advancing smart manufacturing across all sectors. In each episode, we unpack all things Industry 4.0 from latest technology and trends and discuss and dissect the ever-evolving digital manufacturing landscape. I hope by the end of this episode, you're a little bit wiser. So let's get to it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Manufacturing IT Podcast. I'm joined today by Alex Vidras. Alex is the co-founder and executive director at Vimachem, a company that I've been working closely with over the last few months and a company I've been aware of over the last kind of year or so, with Alex joining my private MES WhatsApp community. So, Alex, welcome to the podcast. Great to have you. Looking forward to hearing more about your story.
Great to be here, Daniel. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, my pleasure. So, Alex, maybe you can start by giving us a bit of an introduction into who you are, who Vimachem are, and a little bit talking about the background of the business.
Sure. So, Vimachem, we are a modular pharma MES. We've been in the market since 2015. And essentially, since that time, we came in the market to help the pharma industry really scale faster and provide high quality but also affordable medicines. And we work globally at this stage, and we specialize in the MES space, but exclusively for pharma and biotech.
Yeah, and that's something we're definitely going to dig into later on the kind of industry-wise. But talk to me, Alex, a little bit about the company in terms of background. I think, from you and I working together, I understood the story of the background, but I think that's a really good origin story of the business. Kind of how did you come to be?
Yeah, so we started in 2015, and it was a little bit of a series of events that brought us in the pharma space. Me personally, I'm coming from the data science space. I moved to the US to be a data scientist. And in 2015, while Vimachem was already founded, so Vimachem originally was founded by our father in 2007. But then in 2015, our father passed away suddenly while playing basketball. I moved back to Greece to be with the mother, and that's where I was exposed to the company. The company at the time was 3 people, but the sales guy we had left the company. So in a way, it was a company with no people, but that's where it started. That's where I saw the pharma space and the need for software. So that's how the business started. And regarding the business, let me give you a little bit the story because it's important. So Vimachem from 2007, when the father started the business, until 2015 was reselling equipment. So pharma equipment, production and packaging equipment in the Greek pharma industry. So when we, the 2 brothers, took over, the first thing we did was to try and revive the equipment business. So we essentially entered the pharma space in 2015 trying to sell equipment. That was our first experience. At the beginning, we weren't very successful in selling equipment because, it's an expensive multi-million investment and we didn't have the knowledge or the trust to really sell it initially. But by trying to sell it and by going to trade shows to find new companies to represent in Greece, we were exposed to the pharma space in a time back in 2015 that was only starting to digitize. And what we saw is what kept us in that industry, which was an amazing industry with high quality people, high quality equipment, but no software. And so that's how the business started. And that's how we grew through unfortunate events. But looking back now, it was in a way luck that we were exposed to the industry back at that time, in a time that it was critical for us and for the industry.
Yeah, that's a good background story. And I think it kind of actually aligns pretty much with my background in MES as well. So I was first exposed to MES back in 2015. And that was when I first understood this crazy world of MES and digitalization within manufacturing and specifically within pharma. And I guess it's interesting to see how your path and Philippos, your brother's path, has been in the business in the last kind of 9 years. And obviously that's led us to kind of partner in on recruitment efforts, but also on the podcast now. So that's interesting to hear. So tell us a little bit more about the MES landscape as you see it, Alex, because obviously you've got the established companies that are in the space, the legacy MES vendors and software companies. Then you've got the kind of new era MES providers and yourselves. Where are you kind of, how do you review the landscape of MES at the moment?
Yeah, so we are definitely on the modern cloud-based MES space, and it really goes back to our origin. So when we analyzed, so back in 2015, we quickly saw the opportunity for software. And the first thing we did was to try to understand why, even though there is so much modern equipment, why there is no software. So what quickly realized was that MES was too complex and too difficult to use and to validate. Implementations would take years. And that resulted in only big pharmas, only the top 10, 20% of pharmas being able to afford it. And the next thing we tried to do was analyze what was the issue with the existing vendors. And it became apparent that the monolithic nature of the systems, the fact that you have to hire and maintain a team of engineers and software engineers and developers in order to maintain it, and the fact that connectivity to equipment is not native to many of the traditional MES systems was the main reasons why it was so complex and lengthy and expensive to implement an MES system. So then we had to decide how we're going to fix this. And we realized from back at that time that we needed a modular system that can be deployed modularly. We needed a system that has native IT capabilities. And we needed a system that was easy to use and fast to deploy. So it goes back to our background and to analyzing the market from early enough, how we developed the systems. And that's exactly what we are doing and what we have been offering now for all those years. And it allows us to really solve problems and provide what we call short time to value. In pharma, a system that is validated for months or for years is of no use. A system needs to be validated fast and go in production fast to provide value. And a system has to be easy to be used by the software people. So native connectivity, ability to be running on mobile devices or wearables or phones are some of the things that back then we realized are important, and through the years we have implemented. So yes, we're a modern, modular, IoT-driven pharma MES. And what we say internally, we have three principles that we abide to, which is our software has to be easy to use, fast to implement, and easy to maintain. And the whole company has been built on these principles, our OKRs, the way we analyze our implementations, the way we analyze the value we provide to our pharma customers are all centered around that. So yeah, we are a true modern MES that is solving all these issues that the industry has been struggling with.
Yeah, and I think that it's a really interesting time. You know, as I say, I've been in the MES recruitment space for kind of 9-10 years now, and really see how the landscape has changed between companies now needing a modular approach to their systems, improving time to value, but also not being tied to expensive service contracts, vendor lock, and all of the ugly things that come with a huge monolithic system. So when it comes to kind of modular systems, Alex, talk us through how, you know, maybe how you kind of chose to create the modules and what modules that Vimachem have, and then kind of how that helps manufacturers deploy on a modular basis.
Yeah. So because we built the system by design to be modular, and because we built it step by step, continuously adding new modules, we provide a variety of modules that can really solve the main problem that each of our customers has. So we have a module about manufacturing analytics and OE. We have a module around track and trace. We have a module on weighing and dispense. We have a module on logbooks, and we have a module for EBR. And all those can be deployed completely as standalone. So a company can choose to deploy our weighing and dispense module. A company can choose to deploy our logbooks module, or a company can choose to deploy our EBR module. And the same way that all of our modules are completely integrated with each other, we have a fully open API, because that's another key challenge we noticed back when we were designing the system: integrations. So the same way we can integrate all of our modules with each other, we can also integrate existing modules. So if a company already has a weighing and dispense module or an EBR module, but needs, for example, logbooks that are not batch related as they are in some of the traditional monolithic systems, we can support. So we are really solving problems across. The market that we built the system for and we have been specializing on is the market of the CDMOs, because they really need that flexibility, the ability to really have multiple forms and the ability to really add value to the business. But through the years, we've been approached and we've been working with big pharmas that are using us quite often as a piggyback, as a way to complement maybe monolithic EDR implementations in areas where they hurt. So there is a variety of implementations, but the modularity of the system is truly the one that allows to really have that ability to deploy modules.
Yeah, and obviously the flexibility now for companies to deploy modules, but also the speed and time to value is an easy way for companies to evaluate the success of an implementation, but also an easy way for you as a business to increase your footprint within customers. If we talk about the modules, Alex, what modules are most used by companies, and is there a kind of traditional path that companies would use, or traditional path, companies would start on when looking to implement Vimachem MES?
Yeah, there is. I would say there are like 3, maybe 4 scenarios that tend to be the most typical. So when it comes to some of our large CDMO customers, CDMOs, especially the last few years, have been really affected by the need to produce vaccines and by the need to increase capacity in existing sites. So quite often, especially with CDMOs, one of our most popular modules is our manufacturing analytics and OEE module, combined with the module that we have for digital work instructions and checklists, which they are also using to optimize their changeover process. So our CDMO customers are trying to free up capacity, which is a very important challenge. If a site is at capacity, the only options is buy new equipment to increase capacity. But nowadays, packaging equipment especially can take a year or 2 to be delivered and validated, or to build a new site. So those are really big and lengthy investments, but are not easy to. But while improving your efficiency, utilizing your current equipment better, improving your changeover is an area where our CDMO customers are finding a lot of value. Our OEE system can be deployed within days. We have our own edge device. We have a lot of experience in connecting most of the big packaging vendors out there, EMA, Marchesini, Syntegon, all those. So that's one space. Then the other space is for companies that are more on the compliance aspect. CDMOs are being pressured by big pharma customers to really have digital systems. So when we are approached by them with the need to digitize the batch records, we like to implement an approach that is modular and step by step. So quite often we start with a weigh and dispense or logbooks implementation that within a couple of months can allow the customer to either digitize the weigh and dispense process, which is a critical process, or digitize the logbooks. And the value there is you get the data, but on the same time, you start to build that culture that the operators need, so they can start becoming familiar, interacting with digital devices on the shop floor. And on the same time, in parallel, we start implementing the EBR by connecting the ERP and by formulating the recipes. So this allows us fast, within 6 to 8 months, to really digitize a site end to end. So that's a second bucket of implementations. A third bucket of implementations has to do with track and trace. We're one of the few companies that we have a complete Pharma MES with compliance, analytics, but also track and trace. So we have many customers and many big pharmas that they want to become more flexible by procuring new serialization equipment, and we do offer a level 3 that is completely open to any equipment. So they buy our level 3 and then they buy our OEE, which is completely integrated with it. So not only they improve compliance, but they improve also efficiency. So that's a third bucket. And then, as I said before, the last 2-3 years, we are having multiple big pharma customers that, as we are growing bigger and the market learns more about us, they trust us with either logbooks, primarily logbook implementations in full integration with existing monolithic systems. So they may have an MES that they deployed It took them years to deploy, millions to deploy. So really scrapping it out is not possible, but they need something that they can use when they have deviations. They need batch agnostic logbook. So they put our system and then they can put our digital work instructions or other modules. And then we integrate fully the existing EBR system and we give them value. So I would say those four scenarios are the most prominent. But then, you always have something that completely, able to add value to the customers. Let's say a customer has an existing OE system, but they need to optimize the changeover process and they only buy our changeover module. We like to be able to add value, and we know that each pharma site out there has issues that we can help with. So we always try to identify together with the customer what is the most challenging issue and where can we add the most value. Because at the end of the day, digital transformation is largely a change management project. It's all about proving that value to the business that will allow the business to embrace the new action and really go for it. And of course, giving value to the business tangible, especially through OEE or through reduction of deviations or through KPIs you can track, is the best way really for the organization to embrace and go for it. So our goal is always quick value. And we know that if we give quick value, then, digitization will get on a path and really help the customer.
Yeah, and I think that's really an interesting piece there, Alex. And I think from my side, one of the areas I was keen to ask you about is that with traditional MES sales cycles and companies purchasing an MES, you were looking to, buy in from IT and OT, and you've got IT departments, quality, engineering, ops, manufacturing, maybe. So all of these different kind of stakeholders have got their different points of view and requirements. When it comes to a modular implementation, is it a lot easier for companies to decide who's the business owner of that?
A lot easier. I'm not sure if it is a lot easier, but in a way it is easier. Why? Because you may have a production manager that is needing to free up capacity in a specific line, and instead of completely going through the whole site, you can deploy in that line. So, but within the pharma space, you still need what we call, the buy-in of the main people in the site. So the IT people of the site in terms of security, of course, the quality team of the site in terms of, reviewing that the documentation and the validation processes in par with the quality standards of the site are something that we always make sure we provide. So modularity helps. But of course, you still need to convince the people in the site about the value of the system. And that's where it becomes easier in the fact that you can find a specific problem that you can go and solve. And when you do solve it, then it's much faster. So it's all about working with the customer, showing to the customer that, MES implementation and EBR implementation doesn't have to take years. It can be done in months. And when they see that, then moving in the second side, in the third side, in the fourth side, or up across the site is much faster. That's one part. The other part we are seeing is that even big pharmas or big CDMOs nowadays essentially are running like mid-sized CDMOs, meaning they still have their own budget in the site. They still can decide, especially for certain investments within the site. So we're seeing many similarities between our traditional CDMO customers and some of the big pharmas we're working with, because they still need to fix problems in the site, and they may have a corporate team that might be a system, but they still have their own specific problems that they need to solve. And when you solve them, they help you get another site. So it's definitely a space where there is people of different backgrounds, and really proving the value is the most important to move fast.
Yeah. And I guess each individual site is like a fresh customer, right? Although it might be, multiple sites within one company, but each site is like a different customer because they've got their own challenges, their own goals, their own KPIs. So understanding those from a site level, but also a kind of corporate level is also paramount, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. You may have a site that is producing a small molecule. You may have another site that is a biotech site. So definitely in many cases, different sites are completely different businesses, even within the same organization. That being said, there is also a need, especially in our CDMO customers, to really compare sites. So they need, even though the sites are different, they need that common measurement. They need those standardized KPIs, and they need that information from all the sites to be available to the corporate team in an efficient way. And that's also an area where we've been focusing a lot, especially the last few years, in really giving that corporate team the data they need in order to decide where they have capacity, where they are running potentially in risk of capacity, and where they are facing quality issues, and really optimizing the business as a whole from a corporate standpoint.
Oh, that makes sense. And look, you mentioned obviously at the outset why and how and everything like that in terms of the pharma space. But I guess from a business owner perspective, what's your thoughts on maintaining pharma prevalence with your company rather than looking at other adjacent industries? I guess if you're building a company, more industries would be better, right? But you guys are aligned purely to pharma. Why is that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It mostly goes back, I think, to the fact that we're passionate about pharma in the sense that it provides value to society, and it's a really struggling industry at this stage. So, the introduction of biologics, the introduction of personalized medicines, the fact that people are leaving the industry there because they are retiring, the fact that there is always complexity, there is so much need to help the pharma industry. And we like to be a supporter of that industry. And we realize the more we develop specialized knowledge as a company in the industry, the better and faster we can help it. So adjacent industries, especially when it comes to GMP, are areas where in some cases we may have certain deployments, but we see a lot of need and a lot of requirement for improvement within the pharma space. And that's where we have been focusing, and that's where we will continue to focus in the coming years.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is that fixing problems within pharma is the priority and will remain the priority for the foreseeable.
Yeah, it's a very specialized industry. The people of pharma, they know their processes, they know their equipment, they know their challenges, and they really need team, because it's all about the team that can really understand those challenges. So for us, it's really important to continuously train and develop and being true pharma experts in all areas, especially when it comes to commercial manufacturing. And what we see is the more we specialize, the faster we can help solve those problems. So it's all about pharma. It's our space, and we are passionate for, and it's where we see, our history, our presence, and our future.
Yeah, that's interesting here. And I guess, look, you've been in the space now for close to 10 years and obviously aligned heavily. Where are you seeing the space go to in the next kind of 3 to 5 years? Obviously we've seen the explosion of, modular systems lately and quicker time to value. But where do you think the systems and the market space for MES and Pharma MES will be in the next 5 years, Alex?
Yeah, I think, when I entered the space in 2015, I was coming from 9 years of data science. It was all about the data. So when I was exposed to pharma, I couldn't believe that there was no data, or there were paper data. So the good news is that, paper data is better than no data. So, say there was no data, but there were paper data that they were not very actionable. But, as the industry starts to digitize and as data is collected from machines, from people, from wearables, and now with the evolution of AI, I think the space is entering an era where, that data that are starting to become available will also start to be of use and to provide value. So we already apply AI in many of our modules. We digitize documents automatically within seconds. We use machine vision to optimize processes. And I think we are only scratching the surface of what's possible. So I see the next 3 to 5 years as a boom in terms of the digitization of the space. I think it will happen for sure. The space realized through COVID that, going in the site to sign the batch records or calling in the site to learn when production is going to complete so we can ship the batch is not really feasible anymore. And the industry also realized that, high quality is key in pharma. Of course, it's the absolute necessary aspect, but high quality on its own is not enough anymore. It has to be available. What we realized in COVID is that, the vaccines had to be available on time. So speed to market is also important. And affordability, a high quality medicine that nobody can afford is of no use to anyone. So this is our guiding mission. And as the data are becoming available and AI is becoming more of a commodity and it's out there, the industry will literally explode in that sense. So that's where we see a lot of value, and we are truly excited to be in that space and really be someone that will help the industry utilize all that data that are generated daily to really improve processes, reduce costs, improve quality KPIs, and really, create medicines that are available, affordable, and of high quality.
Oh, it's interesting to get your take on the future, Alex. And I guess, look, one of the things we're approaching almost the end of the episode now, but I wanted to hear about the plans for Vimachem going into 2024 and beyond. And I know you've recently moved to the USA. I think you're dialing in from Philly as we speak. But tell us a little bit about kind of the plans for the company over the next 24, 36 months.
Yeah, I'd say the next 24 to 36 months, it's really about continuing to expand globally. We are lucky enough to build from the beginning a truly global business, but we see large demand for our services in the North American market. And that's exactly the reason why I moved here, to further build up the team here and to work heavily on the biotech space that is prominent in the US. But on the same time, APAC is digitizing fast. We already have customers in Malaysia, in China, in Japan, and we are seeing that the industry is starting to grow. So I'd say the next 12 months are mostly focusing in the US, but then in the next 2 to 3 years, the plan is to really develop local offices also in APAC. We currently work in APAC through partners, and we have good partners in China and in Japan, but we see a necessity in really building a team there as well, especially within the next 2 to 3 years. So I'll be in the US for the next 1 or 2 years, but maybe a move in APAC is also in the plan, especially if you see. I'm joking sometimes with my wife that it's a global world, so we need to be ready to live anywhere. So Singapore sounds good. Maybe
it does. It's a good city. I've spent some time there. I like Singapore. It's a good place, good culture. So that would be interesting. One question there, obviously, you mentioned, established company in Europe, you're seeing a big demand in the US, hence why you moved there, but you've also got customers in kind of Asia Pacific. Do you see a difference in digital maturity, technology readiness across these different continents and regions, or are you seeing kind of companies bubbling at the same kind of speed?
That's a great question. When I entered the space in 2015 was one of the first things I analyzed, and by working globally all these years, is something that I monitor closely. So the answer is there are small differences, but they are smaller than you would expect. In other areas of technology, the US can be much more advanced than Europe or than APAC. But when it comes to pharma, I remain surprised by how similar pharma companies are in Europe and in the US in terms of digital maturity. But of course, we have to see how this will evolve in the coming years. So we are definitely seeing in the US, it's an industry where they focus more on digitization in principle, and they like to go in faster. So I would expect that the US will start accelerating the pace in the next 3 to 5 years. But given that we are in a global environment, European companies cannot really afford to be left behind. So in a way, the same way that we are monitoring the industry is monitoring itself. And even from our APAC customers, Japan is a market that has been very focused in digitization, but in a different sense. Like in Japan, connectivity to equipment is extremely important, but on the same way that equipment might be fully connected, maybe the batch records can still be in paper. So you're seeing differences, but since you're also seeing similarities. Medicines are largely produced, especially in commercial manufacturing, in a very similar way in the global markets. Where you maybe see differences is quality standards, but you are not seeing those differences so much depicted yet in the digitization maturity. Maybe now with AI, you may see some markets start speaking, but So far, Germany, US, and Japan, I'd say are quite similar.
Yeah, interesting to get your take on that, Alex. And I think that's going to be something that we can maybe explore over the next couple of years as the business expands there. But I think this has been a really good intro episode into explaining more about your kind of mission and how you see the space and why you're involved in the space. So it's really kind of great to have you on the episode. And maybe later this year, we can talk about some of the kind of success stories that you guys have had with the US expansion.
Yeah, that would be great.
Great. Thanks, Alex. And we'll talk soon.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel.
Wow, what an episode. Thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and are a little bit more knowledgeable after the episode. If you're a fan of the podcast, please hit like on this episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow wherever you get your podcasts. If you're a super fan, please like and share with your colleagues and friends or whoever you feel might benefit from the knowledge in the episodes. If you'd like to be a guest on a future episode, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search for Daniel Langley. I'll catch you on the next episode. Thanks for watching.